Ever wondered how people paid for stuff back in medieval times? Did they just slap a bag of gold on the counter for a loaf of bread? Well, it was a little more complicated, and honestly, a lot more chaotic than that. Let's dive into the wild world of medieval money. First off, forget about a single unified currency like the dollar or the euro. The medieval world was a patchwork of kingdoms, duchies, and free cities. And almost everyone was minting their own coins. Imagine going on a road trip and needing a different currency every time you cross a county line. That was everyday life for a medieval merchant. The big shots of the coin world were gold and silver. Gold coins, like the Byzantine solidus or the Islamic dinar, were the premium currency. They were stable, widely accepted, and basically the medieval equivalent of a platinum credit card. You wouldn't use a gold coin to buy a turnip. This was for big-ticket items like buying land, paying a dowry, or funding a small war. For most people, seeing a gold coin was a once-in-a-lifetime event. The real workhorse of the medieval economy was silver. The silver penny was king. From England to France to the Holy Roman Empire, silver pennies were everywhere. But here's the catch. Not all pennies were created equal. A king might decide to debase the currency, which is a fancy way of saying he'd mix in cheaper metals like copper to stretch his silver supply. So a penny from King John might have less silver and be worth less than a penny from his grandfather, King Henry II. This made trade a constant headache. People had to weigh coins and check their purity. It's like having to buy every dollar bill to make sure it's real. This is where money changers came in. These guys were the unsung heroes or villains, depending on your perspective of the medieval marketplace. They'd set up a bench, or bank in Italian, which is where we get the word bank. They would expertly identify, weigh, and exchange all the different coins floating around. For a small fee, of course, they could tell you exactly how many pennies from Paris were equal to 1 florin from Florence. Without them, international trade would have ground to a halt. But what about the common folk? The farmers, the blacksmiths, the tavern keepers. For them, even a silver penny was often too valuable for everyday purchases. A single penny could buy a dozen chickens or a day's worth of ale for a whole group of friends. So, how did you buy just one beer? This is where things get really interesting. To make smaller transactions, they would literally cut the pennies into halves or quarters. These were called halfpennies and farthings, which means farthing. Imagine getting change for a 20 and the cashier pulls out a pair of scissors and starts cutting up a bill. It sounds crazy, but it was a practical solution. The problem was, it wasn't always precise, and you could easily get shortchanged with a poorly cut piece. Because of this mess, a huge part of the medieval economy wasn't based on coins at all. It was based on barter and credit. Most people who lived in a small village knew everyone. The baker would give bread to the blacksmith, and the blacksmith would fix the baker's tools. They'd keep a running tally of who owed what to whom. These debts could be settled at the end of the harvest season, or maybe they'd just keep the favor exchange going for years. In many places, goods with a stable value acted as a form of money. Things like grain, salt, or even squirrel pelts could be used to pay taxes or buy goods. It's called money of account. So a lord might say your rent is 10 shillings, but you could pay him in the equivalent value of wheat or livestock. It was a flexible system born out of necessity. The variety of coins was staggering. You had English pennies, French deniers, German pfennigs, Italian grossi. Then there were the bigger silver coins, like the groat, worth for pennies, and the shilling, which was usually just a unit of account equal to 12 pennies, not an actual coin for a long time. It was a dizzying array, and each coin's value could fluctuate based on the political whims of the local ruler or the discovery of a new silver mine. Let's talk about the kings and their money games. Minting coins was a huge source of profit. The king owned the mints, and he could charge a fee, called seigniorage, for turning raw silver into coins. When a king was short on cash, which was, like, always, because wars are expensive, he had a few tricks up his sleeve. He could recall all the old coins, melt them down, add more cheap metal, and then reissue them as new coins with the same face value. People were forced to use the new, less valuable coins, and the king pocketed the extra silver. It was basically a hidden tax, and people hated it. This debasement led to something called Gresham's Law, which basically says bad money drives out good. If you had two coins, one with high silver content and one with low, which one would you spend? You'd spend the bad one and hoard the good one. This meant that over time, the quality of coins in circulation would get worse and worse, leading to inflation and economic instability. So, how did this system ever evolve? Slowly. Very, very slowly. Towards the end of the Middle Ages, you started to see stronger kings and larger states that could enforce a more standardized currency. Italian banking families, like the Medici, pioneered more sophisticated financial tools. They developed bills of exchange, which were like medieval checks. A merchant in London could deposit his money with a banker, get a bill of exchange, and his partner in Venice could cash it. This meant they didn't have to lug heavy, risky chests of coins across Europe. This was a game changer. So, the next time you tap your card or phone to pay for coffee, take a moment to appreciate the simplicity. You're not cutting coins with shears, you're not weighing your change, and you're not trying to figure out if your dollar bill is from a good president or a bad one. The medieval monetary system was a chaotic, confusing, but ultimately fascinating reflection of the fragmented world it served. It was a system built on trust, metal, and a whole lot of creative problem solving. Thanks for watching. If you found this little trip back in time interesting, hit that like button and subscribe for more dives into the weird and wonderful parts of history. See you next time!